For over 50 years, Burlington's legacy has been great deals on coats for all weather conditions. So before you're caught unprepared for the winter weather, head to Burlington for name brands, quality items, and surprising fits for every family member. Stock up on coats, sweaters, and accessories before the cold hits, so you can finally stop avoiding the elements and start living comfortably. Warm up at your nearest Burlington location less than 1 mile away. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow.
Year 2 of the Formula One Las Vegas Grand Prix is come and gone. Well, except for that takedown construction. And we were wondering, did they fix any of the mistakes this time around? Today on CityCast Las Vegas, I'm sitting down with Hey Las Vegas newsletter editor Rob Cotruris, and we're going to compare the past 2 years of F1 in Vegas. We'll highlight the wins and misses and brainstorm how F1 could be less of a burden for the locals. It's Monday, November 25th. I'm David Figler, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about. Before we get into it, let's break this news that everyone already knows. Who won the F1 Year 2 in Las Vegas?
Yes, let's officially congratulate George Russell of Mercedes for winning the second annual Las Vegas Grand Prix. But David, I think that's not the full story, is it?
Well, it wasn't the big international headline. It was very sweet that George Russell won the race, but Max Verstappen of the Red Bull team was able to secure enough points, I guess, ahead of his rival that he is the world champion. So he secured it here in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas is lucky for him, even if he doesn't win a race.
And Red Bull had some issues with their car, so it's even more impressive.
There you go. The big story last year was the manhole cover lifting up off the track and causing a crash.
Happened during one of the practice laps.
Right. It was a pretty rough start for the inaugural, especially after all the construction work for whatever it was, like 9 months. Were there any notable mishaps with the track this year?
No, they made a point to nail down all of those pesky manholes. So there was nothing that dramatic this year to speak of as far as the track goes. Some drivers did complain after taking their initial practice laps on Thursday that the track was, in their words, in bad condition. They thought it was a little dusty since year one. It wasn't fresh and new like when they paved it right before the first year. So that could mean a few things, but it didn't cause any issues, but it could lead to maybe some more repaving next year. I haven't heard anything about that, but it wouldn't surprise me if that came out of this.
Yeah, well, it's not a dedicated track. It is a regular city street.
Are you trying to say we actually use this track the other 364 days of the year?
Yes.
This track called Las Vegas Boulevard?
The only thing different is that the F1 drivers don't have to deal with pedestrians crossing against the lights all the time, although that would make, to me, a very different and interesting F1.
I think it's destined to happen. It's Vegas.
Oh, boy.
Somebody's going to jaywalk in the middle of this race at some point.
With the giant yard of alcohol. Oh, my goodness. So what was the highlight of this year F1 for you?
You know what? I really, to the dismay of some locals listening to this podcast, I had a pretty good time at F1 this year.
Yeah, it looked like a good time.
Yeah, so I got to check out the race from a few different angles. Obviously, they added some new components. They're trying to be a little more locals friendly. I think they're trying to appeal to not just the 1% this year, but also the regular race fan or maybe somebody who wants to check out the spectacle of it all. So you have some new grandstands that were added this year with general admission tickets. So you might not have had an assigned seat, and you might not have been committed to all 3 days. So maybe just go on Thursday to check out the practice laps, or you just save up your money and go on Saturday when the race actually takes place. They also had a support race. So there was a second race this year.
Support race? What is that, like an undercard on a boxing ticket?
Yeah, exactly. It's like having an opening act. So it was a little more incentive for ticket holders to come out and see 2 races instead of 1. And that applied to the first 2 nights as well, the practice laps and the qualifying. I got down to the paddock, the pit building on night one on Thursday, and I got a chance to really just take in the whole scope of everything. I mean, it's very much a festival. It's very much a block party.
It's a spectacle. I mean, that's, the 3 days, we get it.
Yeah, it's almost a little bit like EDC, but for older people with more money, where, there's bright lights, there's things to do, there's a lot of booze, a lot of drinking, little things like pop-up golf putting courses and little mini museum. In the pit building or by the paddock, they had silent disco, and Vegas loves its silent disco. So there was a little bit of that party spectacle, that festival atmosphere, and I was just impressed with how much goes into this. So sometimes, in Vegas, we think about entertainment. Somebody comes to town, whether it's a concert or whatever, and they bring their crew and they come and they leave. But on the first night, I actually was meeting up with a contact from WhistlePig. And I don't say anything. I'm not going to turn down anything WhistlePig related.
No, you're a whiskey lover.
I like my whiskey. I had a chance to actually tour the paddock and see the garage where these cars are getting prepped and kind of be out there on the pit lane right before they go out. And everything that goes into it, it's like watching a mini science lab. I mean, there's equipment everywhere. There's all kinds of monitors. There's way more people per team than I thought there was. And they're doing things like warming up the tires. And these cars are so light too. I think they have to either weigh in the neighborhood of 1,300 pounds, and that's including the driver. So these are very light vehicles. There's very much a science involved.
The official numbers are in, and they are way less than it was inaugural year. But how did it feel? Did it feel well attended?
It did to me. That's sort of the question weighing on me as I'm going through all 3 days, where is this more or less than last year? If it's less, is it dramatically less than last year? And I was going on the social media site formerly known as Twitter, and David Charnes of 8 News Now was saying that the attendance for Saturday night's race, the main event, was 57,000 people. And he said that's 134,000 people for all 3 nights.
Right.
So that's quite a bit down. Formula One's official attendance that they've said is 306,000, which would be a decline of 9,000 from last year's figure.
Which isn't as much, but I mean, no one's auditing numbers.
Well, Mr. Charnes is disputing that number, so maybe this is something that needs to be sorted out. I would not call it quiet or empty compared to last year by any means. I mean, there were people everywhere. There were people all over the place. And sometimes you look up at the grandstands and you're like, oh, that doesn't look so full. But then you look at them a little while later and you're like, oh, that really does look full. But you're just surrounded by everybody. And you don't want it to be overly crowded, too.
Right. And it wasn't tragically empty that people, but, we can quibble all day long about the actual numbers and what the occupancy rates were versus what they said that they are, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to change gears a little bit on this race episode where we focus on the locals, because the locals are the one probably most affected by F1 beyond those 3 days. And the ones most affected are Strip employees in the businesses and surrounding areas. There are ongoing lawsuits related to F1 year one, and Strip employees are still impacted by the commutes and the weird shift changes and the fact that some restaurants and shows closed down because they didn't want a repeat of last year.
Right.
Do you think that there's anything more F1 could do that they didn't do this year to ease the burden on Strip employees and the surrounding businesses?
I mean, I do think it's going to get a little bit better each year. Obviously, they didn't have to finish building the pit building this year like they did last year. They didn't have to do the initial paving like they did last year. They did most of the construction work at night, which was a big improvement. They had a few other things that I think they were trying to do to make it a more locals-friendly spectacle. For example, that bridge that crosses Flamingo, and is part of the reason that some businesses in that vicinity have had issues drawing customers while F1 is in town. That bridge was a little bit smaller this year, Whether that really helped or not, I'm not sure. But I think F1 does need to kind of do something to reach out to local businesses that are directly in sort of the
footprint
F1
or the
zone,
footprint adjacent. Yeah.
the imprint, so to speak. Whether that's maybe, there's a million things. You could be buying out restaurants to do events while F1's in town. You could be maybe hiring some of them to do some of the catering. There's a million things you could do. Maybe that's just some compensation. F1's a big money operation. It's international. And maybe you just throw something the way to the businesses that you're literally building fences and other things in the area and blocking off access. So I think that's a fair trade-off.
Well, and you're making that whole area rough. I mean, I remember last year, friends of mine who go to school at UNLV were like, classes were canceled because it was just such a nightmare because they are in pretty close proximity to the racetrack.
Right. I'm trying to kind of find the balance of this because F1 takes place the week before Thanksgiving, which is traditionally not a busy week in Las Vegas to begin with. Right. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have, people traveling during Thanksgiving and right before it, but no one really goes on vacation right before they're about to take another vacation. At least most of us.
People still work day in and day out. I mean, there's a real city here, by the way.
Yes.
Everyone listening who is usually locals.
Right. So it's kind of like, okay, is this something that helps what's normally a quiet week, or does it have so many different components of driving people away while attracting different people that it does more harm than good? And that's a debate. And I don't know the exact answer to that. People are going to complain about the traffic and how it disrupts things. You got scaffolding and all other stuff that's de-beautifying the strip for weeks at a time, if not longer. So, I mean, we're just going to have to see where it falls and, if this is worth it.
Wineaux, that's spelled W-I-N-E-A-U-X, is the latest rage for wine lovers and the vino curious around the valley. Located in a sweet new spot at the Uncommons off the 215, Wineaux is more than a wine bar, it's a marketplace. It's a welcome escape because it's so comfy in there too. It's a wine shopper's paradise. Wineaux is staffed with a helpful, knowledgeable, and friendly team that guides guests as they try, buy, and fall in love with great wines at all the price points for any budget. At Wineaux, you could order bottles, bites, and market items online for easy in-store pickup. There's also the Wine Club, where you could subscribe to get 2 unique bottles every month. Whether you're a curious newbie or an experienced connoisseur, their selection will have you excited to dive into a specific region or try a new grape variety. Head on over to wineaulv.com today to shop around, or head to Wineaux at the Uncommons for an in-store adventure.
For over 50 years, Burlington's legacy has been great deals on coats for all weather conditions. So before you're caught unprepared for the winter weather, head to Burlington for name brands, quality items, and surprising fits for every family member. Stock up on coats, sweaters, and accessories before the cold hits, so you can finally stop avoiding the elements and start living comfortably. Warm up at your nearest Burlington location less than 1 mile away. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow.
Did you see any local businesses partnering up with F1 at any of the events that you went to?
I saw a few things like, for example, at the hospitality suite we were at, Cut and Taste was doing the catering, and they're a local operation that you see at a lot of events from time to time. I think I would actually like to see more local presence at these events, or at F1 in particular. In certain grandstands, I had a chance to go visit the Sphere grandstand, for example, and for that particular ticket, food is included, food and soft drinks and water. But the food itself, like you'd go to these stalls, almost like you would just walk up to buy something, and, it would say like burger, very generic, taco, other things, sweets, desserts. And I got to say, that food sucked. That food was not good. The food in the hospitality suite was great. The Cut and Taste food that was made locally, that was good. I don't know who was making like the generic food that was in...
Festival food. Generic.
It was very much
food.
Festival food.
Yeah.
Like something billed as a smash burger. It looked like it was like...
Smush. More of a smush burger.
Yeah, it was definitely a smush burger. Like it was in the whole bun got put in the Foreman grill or something like that. It was,
Well, Rob, you went to some of the other events this week, too. Let's start with the F1 fan event, which they didn't have last year. What were your biggest takeaways from that event?
Yeah, I mean, I think F1 was trying to take its cue from the Super Bowl in Vegas this past year. Have some activations, have some things that are fun for fans, even if you don't have the money to get in and actually watch the sporting event itself. And the fan experience was one of those things. And I kind of walked through it briefly. It was in that lot that's right across from the Wynn, and it was free. The free tickets, quote unquote, sold out, but it didn't seem that overly crowded to me. It seemed like a lot of people were filtering in and out. But if you were a race fan, you would love this. You walk through, they have different setups. They have like car exhibits. They had a little pickleball court where people could play pickleball or get behind simulators and race their own digital car. There was a Lego display for F1. And a nice touch, there was a American Express Small Business Saturday pop-up that actually had a few local businesses in there. So people could go shop Small Business Saturday a week early. And there was a stage for live music, and the band that was playing was quite good. It was kind of like a cover band type of deal. Mm-hmm. But that's just one of those things where, okay, not everything has to be expensive. And Resorts World, all the casinos, pretty much all the big ones, had their own little mini F1 pop-ups. Resorts World, I think, did a great job with their, they had a little mini go-kart course that you could play, and it was right next to like merch stands and exhibits. And they had the Ferrari from Magnum PI on display as well. So that's fun too.
Now, downtown last year definitely complained about the lack of business or inclusion. And this year they planned the Neon City Festival, which was, don't call it a counter program, but a counter program to support downtown Las Vegas during the race weekend. Was the Neon City Festival successful in bringing more people to downtown to spend money and stay this weekend?
You know, it's funny. So I went and checked out the Neon City Festival. I kind of wanted to see what it was all about. To be fair, I was there on the early-ish side, kind of between 5 and 6 p.m. on Saturday night, so the day of the race. And it didn't seem that much different than an average Saturday night on the Fremont Street experience. There was nothing really about it that goes, oh, this has been like transformed into a festival, like you might think when, Life is Beautiful used to take over the downtown area. Or even when the Motley Brews Beer Festival used to kind of take up those streets. Yeah. It's pretty much, I would say it was like a busier than usual night at the Fremont Street experience. Some higher profile music acts on the stages that are there all the time, like the 3rd Street stage. There was free performances at the downtown Las Vegas Event Center, which is kind of just one block south. But it was very quiet in there. But there was pop-up vendors. There was a few little activations in there. There was food trucks, bars, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I thought the food truck thing was kind of funny because on the big canopy, they had a signage for Culinary Village, and it was pointing, and then I saw on social media they cut away, and it was just basically a bunch of food trucks, which is nice, but not necessarily Culinary Village, although my favorite food truck was present, which is Old Manny's.
Oh, what do they serve?
They do Mexican seafood, and it's the former owners of Baja Mar.
Yes.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So they got the aqua chilies out there in the food truck. Kind of amazing.
So if I want old school Baja Mar, that's the place to go to.
Go follow Old Manny's on the Instagram. If you learn nothing else about our takeaways from F1, go follow a local food truck. But was it successful then? I mean...
I'm not sure. I think, downtown was busy and it gave people a reason to go down there. I think if anybody was expecting like a festival, they might have been a little bit disappointed. Like, for example, the food trucks were both near the stage. And then also, I think this is what you're referring to. There was some actually kind of in the middle of Fremont Street off to the side. So, I mean, there was a few little differences, but overall, it wasn't like anything that you would notice. Like, for example, the Arts District was supposed to be part of this a little bit. I kind of drove through the Arts District, kind of coming and going to see what they were doing. It didn't look like business was any different, or it was pretty much business as usual in the Arts District.
Yeah, I'd heard some scuttlebutt that the attempt to engage 18B, the Arts District, kind of fell short, and there was some drama there, but I don't know the specifics of that.
I noticed a few shops were maybe like putting some things out on the sidewalk, maybe to kind of take advantage of some anticipated traffic and that kind of thing. but it did not morph into festival land by any means, at least from what I could tell.
Well, my big takeaway was that F1 year 2 didn't have the same, energy. There wasn't as much discussion. There wasn't as much curiosity, I think, because now we sort of know what it is. And there wasn't a lot of people talking about it other than the sort of polarized, yes, this is a great thing for Las Vegas because anything like this is good for Las Vegas, and no, it's not worth what we actually have to put up with. So let me ask you, Rob, having experienced as much of this and knowing what it was like last year, do you think F1 is making substantial progress in being accepted by more locals?
I think they're starting to get there. I think there's going to be people that just hate F1 no matter what. And if you need proof of that, just go on your favorite social media site and you will see lots of complaints.
Stay off the social media, everybody.
Yeah. So they've done some things this year. Like they tried doing some community outreach. I know they did some stuff with like UNLV, like hosting some tours for students from there, doing some other things as far as charity outreach, taking the steps to kind of minimize some of the disruption as far as the construction compared to last year helps. I think ultimately it would help if it didn't just take so long to put this whole thing together.
Yeah.
Because, really, you're looking at a fifth of the year that's dedicated to F1, if not more. So I think that would go a long way. I think having more things for locals to do is going to help. And I think the casinos and I think Las Vegas in general is going to have to kind of learn to live with it for now and think about things they can do to kind of maximize this spectacle. I'd like to see maybe just some more deals. Like, for example, the Wicked Spoon Buffet at the Cosmopolitan ran a 2-for-1 deal for locals because they were kind of quiet this week. But it was
I'm not going anywhere near the Strip during F1. It's just not going to happen.
Well, that's the thing is, if you're here for F1, you might spend some money at the Wicked Spoon Buffet, but they were kind of quiet and they didn't have the traffic they usually had. But why not advertise that a little bit louder? I actually saw it online on a post, and then I had to go directly to MGM Resorts to a contact there to actually officially confirm it. And they were like, yes, please share it. So I think, maybe if there's a little creativity out there as far as taking advantage of maybe offering a few more incentives while this is going on. Maybe we can find a balance where the disruption of F1 can live alongside some other cool things that Vegas is trying to do. I want to give Neon City Festival some credit for being a good first step, and I'll be curious to see how it develops next year, because Derek Stevens did tell us he's absolutely planning to do this every year that there's an F1 in town, however long that may be.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, my 2 cents on that is just some better optics. Putting up big barriers in front of the Bellagio fountains, which is just an iconic tourist spot so far in advance, bad idea. Right. Putting up those walls on the walkways across the Strip, it just looks horrible. It really looks like it's an exclusionary thing, and it's aesthetically ugly for, our beautiful Strip. And more transparency. You don't have to buff all the numbers. It does sound from your take, Rob, that everyone had a good time, that it went off well, and there's a lot of moving parts. The race itself, no major crashes or anything really super bad like that. By all accounts, a decent event, brought money into and people into the community. It just seems like you don't have to fudge numbers. You could just be real about it.
Yes, there definitely is something beautiful about just watching a lot of people enjoying what Las Vegas is for a few days. And ultimately, the one thing you can't really measure is F1 itself is broadcast around the world. It shows our city in an amazing light. Just looking at the Strip and the way it lights up around the track with the sphere and everything. So, it's basically an advertisement for Las Vegas all around the world. And maybe that will draw some, more international travelers who just kind of think about Vegas in their head a little bit more than they used to and book a vacation here that has nothing to do with F1.
Rob Catullarese, thanks for doing the hard journalistic work and having a fun party for 3 days on the Strip with F1.
It's a tough job, but somebody has to do it. But when duty calls, I will be there. And David, thank you so much. I'm glad we can talk about it so quickly after the race.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Till then, stay lucky.